At 2:14 a.m., the Mezin Bridge stood in eerie stillness above the Dnipro River, its steel ribs glowing faintly under the moonlight. The only sound came from the low thunder of engines rolling across it. A Russian convoy stretching over 5 miles long, more than 350 armored vehicles, loaded with ammunition, fuel, and command gear, crept forward through the fog like a mechanical serpent. To Moscow, this was not just a convoy, it was a statement, a resupply for their southern offensive, and a symbol of unstoppable momentum. But beneath the bridge's iron skeleton, something far smaller was waiting. 12 Ukrainian FPV drones, cost $600 each, clung magnetically to the steel beams, disguised under layers of dust and rust. They had been sleeping there for 3 days, without signal, without light, powered by silent lithium cells, in an AI system that did not need GPS or a human hand to guide it. Each drone carried a PG-7V-L-shaped charge, the same warhead used in handheld rocket launchers, capable of slicing through 12 inches of reinforced concrete. They were not designed to fly long distances. They were designed to wake up, strike once, and disappear. Above, Russian soldiers smoked, laughed, and played cards inside their armored carriers. Their radar systems scanned the sky every few seconds, searching for drones, but not beneath their wheels. Their mistake was simple, almost arrogant. They believed danger always comes from above. Then at 2:15 a.m., fate intervened. A fuel truck's cheap rubber tire exploded under pressure, sending fragments spinning into the dark. The vehicle skidded, blocking the center lane. Dozens of trucks slammed their brakes. The convoy stalled, stretching across the entire length of the bridge. The perfect bottleneck, the perfect kill zone. Miles away in a dimly lit Ukrainian bunker, a single operator watched from a fiber-linked micro camera embedded in the bridge's maintenance rig. His hands trembled. He had waited 72 hours for this exact alignment. When the convoy was packed so tight it could not escape, he whispered a code, pressed one key, and the command was sent. Under the bridge, 12 green lights blinked to life. The ghosts had awakened, and the night began to shift from silence to destiny. You can support us by liking, subscribing, and telling us which country you are watching from. Engines roared and brakes screamed as the Russian convoy's center tightened into chaos. Above, the bridge shuddered under the weight of hundreds of tons of steel. Beneath, the air vibrated as the drones detached from their clamps one by one, falling 3 feet before their brushless motors spun to life. Their hum blended with the engine noise, invisible, indistinguishable, perfect. On the deck, a young Russian lieutenant in a Panzer I command vehicle rubbed his eyes. His radar showed a faint electronic disturbance beneath the bridge. It looked like static, meaningless, perhaps interference from the river below. 99 times out of 100, this kind of flicker was nothing. But on this night, his instincts betrayed him. He switched the radar from passive to active mode. A focused beam of energy flooded downward, illuminating the girders like invisible sunlight. For half a heartbeat, the drones shimmered on his scope, faint blips moving against the current. Then, as if aware of being seen, they adjusted their formation, sliding sideways to align perfectly with the bridge's supports. The radar beam reflected off the concrete, scattering false returns. The contacts vanished. The lieutenant leaned closer, frowning, unaware that in that instant, he had just signed his own death sentence. Because when his radar activated, it also triggered the Ukrainian drone's threat recognition subroutine. Their onboard AI classified the pulse pattern as hostile. A small burst of encrypted chatter flashed through the mesh network, and every drone simultaneously updated its trajectory. They would now strike as one. The operator in Kyiv exhaled slowly as his monitor lit up with telemetry data. The trap had evolved. Suddenly, one of the drones deployed a decoy, a small heat emitter no larger than a soda can, and darted into view. The Panzer fired. A missile screamed off its rail and obliterated the decoy in a burst of fire. The explosion rippled across the bridge, lighting up the convoy's undercarriage. Soldiers shouted. Radios cracked. "Contact under the bridge." The lieutenant barked orders, but the convoy was already collapsing into panic. Trucks jackknifed, engines stalled, In trying to defend themselves, they had sealed their fate, stopped dead in the very spot Ukraine had been waiting for. Below, the real drones retreated back under the girders, invisible once more, recalibrating for the final command. The operator's finger hovered over a single key. The word on his screen was simple: execute. At 3:47 a.m., the sky above the Dnipro turned red. 11 drones surged upward from beneath the bridge, like awakened hornets. Their electric motors screamed, cutting through the smoke. Within seconds, the first shaped charge hit, a precise strike on the bridge's central support column. The explosion wasn't just noise, it was violence sculpted by math. The shaped charge punched through the concrete, releasing a wave of pressure that bounced off the river below. The shockwave had nowhere to go, amplifying itself between water and steel until it became a single, solid wall of destruction. The bridge groaned like something alive. The rebar inside its bones began to snap. The second drone struck, then the third, then 4, 5, 6. Each detonation timed within tenths of a second to overlap and magnify the others. The air compressed into an invisible hammer. On the bridge, the Russian lieutenant saw the deck ripple like liquid. A fuel truck flipped sideways, bursting into a fireball. Another truck carrying artillery shells detonated, sending shards of metal spinning like shrapnel rain. The convoy was no longer a convoy. It was a funeral procession in motion. Panzer guns fired blindly into smoke. Their tracers cut orange arcs into the fog, hitting nothing but darkness. The drones were no longer flying. They were gone, burned up in their own blasts. But their impact had already rewritten the bridge's fate. The southern section folded first. The center span twisted, tilted, and then, with a groan that drowned out every scream and engine, collapsed. 40 vehicles plunged into the Black River below, their lights flickering out one by one. The sound of their fall lasted longer than the explosion itself. At the command post, the Ukrainian operator's feed turned to static, but the readings confirmed everything. Structural collapse, 9 of 11 successful detonations. He removed his headset, staring at the floor. For the Russians, the night was over. For Ukraine, the future had just arrived. War was no longer about who had more soldiers or shells. It was about who could think quieter, move faster, and disappear before being seen. The bridge burned for hours, its reflection dancing on the water like the pulse of a dying giant. By dawn, the Mezin bridge was gone. Only a jagged scar of twisted metal remained, stretching across the smoking river. Satellite images captured a line of wreckage 5 miles long. Blackened tanks, shattered trucks, and floating debris glowing orange in the early sunlight. The convoy that was meant to resupply Russia's southern front had ceased to exist. Over 2 million pounds of ammunition and fuel had been vaporized in a single night. The southern push, once the pride of the Kremlin's strategy, ground to a halt. Entire battalions went dark on radio. Command posts scrambled for alternative routes, but the next nearest crossing was 50 miles away and already within Ukrainian artillery range. Panic spread through Russian logistics chains like frost through glass. In Kiev, the control room was quiet. No one cheered. The operators simply watched the aftermath unfold across multiple satellite feeds. The lead engineer, a man who had once built drones for agricultural mapping, whispered under his breath, almost like a prayer. "Less than $10,000, he said. That's all it took." As the smoke thinned, the full scale of the operation's brilliance became clear. Ukraine hadn't just destroyed a bridge, it had destroyed the myth of invincibility. It proved that war was no longer won by strength, but by patience, algorithms, and precision. The battle had been decided by code, by silent logic that waited 3 days under steel beams, while 350 vehicles rolled overhead, never suspecting what slept beneath them. The strike echoed far beyond the Dnipro. Western analysts called it the most cost-effective operation in modern warfare. Russian commanders called it sabotage from hell. But soldiers on both sides understood it for what it truly was: evolution. By mid-morning, Ukrainian reconnaissance drones filmed the ruins from above. The camera tilted slowly, capturing the sun rising through the haze of smoke. What once was a symbol of dominance now looked like the bones of a fallen beast, steaming in silence. The footage ended with a simple line that appeared on screen in white text over black. "The future of war does not roar, it whispers." Then came the fade out. No soundtrack, no commentary, just the hum of wind across open water. The war would continue, but something irreversible had changed. The bridge was gone, the convoy was gone, and history had quietly crossed into a new era.